It is January 16th, 2023, and you are watching the Code Report. Tailwind is the worst way to do CSS, except for all the other ways that have been tried. An epic war erupted yesterday after somebody had the audacity to post a Tailwind snippet on Twitter. The allied Tailwind Alliance defended this code, while the unified CSS fundamentalists said horrible, dehumanizing things about it, like it's not even real CSS. As a result, many insecure nerds suffered slightly hurt feelings from hearing mild criticisms about technology choices that their clients will never care about. It was truly horrific. I decided to run a poll to see where you guys fall, and although most have never tried it, 4 out of 5 people that have tried Tailwind love it. Still though, it has its trade-offs, and may not be a good fit for every project. In this video, I want to explain the problems Tailwind solves, because it's obvious that many people don't even understand them, yet still have no problem hating on a free and open source tool publicly. I personally joined the Tailwind cult a couple of years ago, after refusing to drink the Kool-Aid for quite a while. In my experience, it's a tool like TypeScript or Svelte that makes it really hard to go back to the thing you were using before, because it saves a ton of time, and becoming a productive developer is all about using your time wisely. The first problem with CSS is co-location. The standard practice for the last 20 years has been to separate your CSS from the markup to provide a good separation of concerns, and doing otherwise means you go to hell. As programmers, we know the hardest part of the job is naming things, and this practice requires you to come up with a lot of arbitrary names that are often pointless. A few weeks later, when you come back to modify this code, it becomes difficult to figure out which styles actually apply to each element, because you've totally forgotten what these class names do. And you might have used these class names in multiple places, so if you try to change it, it could break unexpected parts of the UI. Tailwind addresses this problem by giving you standard utility classes that are co-located in the HTML. This results in disgusting, bloated HTML that looks like blasphemous inline styles at first glance. And that's a very valid criticism, and likely the main turnoff for people when they first look into using Tailwind. However, the benefit is that you don't have all these arbitrary class names anymore, and know exactly which styles apply to it. And that just clears a ton of mental overhead from your plate. You can make modifications safely without breaking other parts of the app. Also, here's a little pro tip. If you're using Tailwind and hate the way your HTML looks, the inline fold VS Code extension can automatically minimize it for you. Problem number 2 is that CSS is verbose. Remember, everything in Tailwind is just CSS. Hover over any class to view the actual CSS code. What's cool about it though is that it uses clever naming conventions like inset0 to do something in one line of code that would take 6 lines of CSS, because it combines properties and values together. I would estimate that Tailwind results in approximately 1/3 the total amount of code that you would have with vanilla CSS, and the best type of code is the code you never have to write. However, a valid criticism of this approach is that you have to learn an abstraction on top of CSS, which is not ideal. It's always best to use the platform natively, but the web platform is often cruel and vengeful. Now, problem 3 is that CSS gives you too much control over the UI, while frameworks like Bootstrap are too difficult to customize. Tailwind falls right in the middle of these, giving you a standard set of constraints to make sure the UI looks good, but tends to be much easier to customize to accommodate any design. Like when you build a Bootstrap app, it always tends to look like a Bootstrap app. With Tailwind, it's not so obvious. Now, the final problem I want to talk about is zombie styles. We have a tendency to write styles that never actually get used, and just bloat the CSS bundle. Tailwind will automatically purge all unused styles to kill the zombies and remove this dead code. That's pretty cool, but the drawback is that Tailwind is a pretty heavy-handed approach. It takes like 5 steps to set up to install the Tailwind CLI, Post CSS, and the VS Code extension. For that reason, I only use it on big projects. For smaller demos, I've been using Pico CSS, which can make things look good with 0 effort thanks to its classless approach. As you can see, there are many pros and cons to a library like Tailwind. Ultimately, here's a good rule you can go by. If you like Tailwind, use it. If you don't like Tailwind, don't use it. Nobody cares. Literally nobody cares about your technology choices except you. This has been the Code Report. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.